Hi, everyone, and welcome to Cole in the Community. We are so excited today to have one of our own BCBAs, Ms. Stefanie Sprague, with us at our Cypress location, present to us today on Echoics. This is such a great webinar for us to watch and learn, and we are so excited to have you here, Stefanie, with your expertise and your passion for children. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you so much.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stefanie Sprague, and I am a BCBA over at Cypress here at Cole Academy. I absolutely love the Cole family and the culture here and the opportunity to get to work with the families each and every day. So one of the things that I get to do every single day is man training, and it is one of my favorite things to do. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what that looks like, some strategies that you could implement in the home, just to get our early learners talking. The title of our slideshow is going to be our Echoics, Simple Manding for Complex Words. So we've got manding in our definition, and everything is going to come from my Cooper, Huron, Howard, and Huron book, and the works side will be on the back. But so these are all definitions straight from there, and then I'll kind of try to break it down as they are. Manding is an elementary verbal operant that is evoked by an MO and followed by specific reinforcement. So what does that mean? Commands are requests. It's short for command. And so anytime we're asking for items or soliciting help from an adult to get things, questions that we have, requesting more information, those are all going to be mands. Mands are super duper important because the requests give the speaker control over the environment, allowing them access to reinforcement throughout the day. It gives them control over their environment, so they kind of have a say in what is happening and what things should look like. So it allows them to access reinforcement throughout the day naturally, and then it improves their quality of life. So mands are really, really important, and it's always a good first language building block because of the immediacy of the reinforcement. So you make a request and then you get a preferred item. And so that's going to make us want to emit that response more and more and more because we're getting access to that reinforcement so fast. So mands also establish the learner as a speaker. So that's really important part of the social component, that back and forth language. Being able to emit mands means that we're able to solicit help from an adult and say, cookie, like I want a cookie. So we're not just at the mercy of everybody else around us. That gives us the power as a speaker. Mands are an appropriate replacement behavior and an antecedent intervention for maladaptive behaviors. So we always incorporate functional communication training whenever we are treating maladaptive behaviors and challenging behaviors. And all that is just trying to help our learners make requests appropriately instead of engaging in challenging behaviors. So for example, instead of tantruming, we're gonna ask to go or stop or take a break. Or we're going to be able to have more control of our environment and get things that we want using our words instead of having to emit our challenging behavior. Motivating operations. So motivating operations are an environmental variable that alters the effectiveness of a stimuli or an activity and the frequency of behaviors that have been punished or reinforced by that stimuli or activity. So let's break it down and tease it apart. So motivating operations are really important in man training. Motivating operations are going to tell us what our learners want to ask for. And so it's going to help guide our man training to make it more effective. So the MO alters the value of something for a particular person at a particular time and scenario. It's important to understand the MO before conducting man training. And man training should only occur when the MO is strong. For example, I've got my runner over here and then a glass of water. A glass of water might not be super reinforcing, but after a long jog, our glass of water is going to look a lot more attractive. So the MO is going to be very high after a run for a glass of water. Whereas if we're in a swimming pool and we've been exposed to water all day and we've been guzzling lots of it, we're going to be satiated, and then that water isn't going to be so attractive. So the MO for water at that moment would be very low. So our MO is going to help us determine what things our learners are going to want or be more motivated for to make requests. So it'll help make our strategies more effective. So ways to alter the MO: deprivation, satiation, and response requirement are 3 ways to alter the MO. So if we want to make something more attractive, we might deprive or use deprivation and satiation. So deprivation has to do with the amount of time has passed since the learner has had contact with the reinforcer. So if the learner is restricted or denied access to an item or activity, the learner may be more motivated to request that item. So for example, if we have a top priority behavior that we're working on, say our learner is super limited in the edibles that they're going to consume. So out of medical necessity, it's important for us to eat more healthy foods. So we are going to pick potent reinforcers, something that our learners are extremely motivated for, something that's really attractive to our learner. And then we are going to use that during our feeding sessions to motivate our client. So we might not let them have that item throughout the day, but we'll use it during that feeding session so it's super attractive. Satiation occurs when we have continued contact with the reinforcer. So if the learner has continued contact with a reinforcer, they may be less motivated to man for that reinforcer. So that's something to keep in mind when you're conducting man training. The response requirement. Requirement can also weaken the MO. So if you reduce the response requirement, that can increase the likelihood of responding using successive approximations to shape the desired or target behavior. And we're going to talk about using successive approximations and reducing the response requirement using Echoics, so that we can shape that verbal behavior that we're looking for. So sometimes just making it a long word or a hard task much more simple, we can gain more compliance with our interventions. So taking a big part and teasing it apart into smaller chunks and then just working on it that way. So how do you know what the learner wants? So there's lots of ways. We have choice procedures, there's formal and informal. You can just pair 2 items and say, hey, which one do you want? And have them select an item. And then that can help you understand which one the MO is higher for. Watching the child in their natural environment to see what they're attracted to and how much time they spend with specific items or activities. So just watching them in the playroom and where they go and how much time they're spending on with each toy, or if there's something that they're more attracted to than maybe something else. If we're spending a lot of time with one item, then that would mean maybe our motivation is high for that one. Remember that motivation changes frequently. So just because we interact with one item a lot one day, that doesn't mean we're going to be motivated the next day for it. So we have to kind of always keep an eye out for what the learner is going to be motivated by. And then kind of always use our choice procedures and our observation to identify what is motivating at the moment. And then choosing mands that the learner is slow to be satiated on is a good starting point. So highly preferred snacks, highly preferred activities and toys are good ways to start, because some of the first responses can be the hardest ones to get. So successive approximations. So successive approximations, these are new response clauses that emerge as a result of differential reinforcement closer to the desired behavior. So all this is just teasing the word apart and making to smaller chunks. So I have the example right here for juice. So at first, juice might be a really hard word to say for our learner. So we're not going to start with that whole word. We're just going to start with a short echoic, and we're going to say ja. And then we're going to reinforce every time they say ja for juice. So if they man for we'll hold or present our juice cup, and then we'll say ja, If they emit the ja, we're going to highly reinforce, praise them, and then immediately offer the juice. So that way they're preparing that word with access to reinforcement so that we might see more of that verbal behavior. And then once we get reliable responding with the ja, then we're going to move to the next phase and we'll do ju. And so now we are only going to reinforce the ju. So once we get reliable responding with that, then we can only reinforce the juice. So we'll expect that the response class gets harder and harder each time. So we'll go ja, ju, juice, and we'll reinforce each successive approximation. So establishing mands. We're going to use prompting, differential reinforcement, and prompt fading to establish our mands. So whenever we conduct our mand training, these are the strategies that we'll use to bring about more elaborate verbal behavior. So if we find that a learner is motivated by a particular stimuli or activity, it is appropriate to conduct mand training. So once you start to identify those potent reinforcers, and once you start to see what the learner is gravitating towards or motivated by, you can use those items to conduct your mand training. So if they're laughing and playing with a ball, you can assume that there's motivation for the ball. So we can hold the ball and prompt the learner, remember, to reduce the response requirement initially. And we're going to give the vocal mand, say buh, and then we're going to make playing with the ball contingent upon the learner emitting this buh sound. Okay, so if the learner emits the buh sound, we're going to highly reinforce and immediately give access to the ball. Good job saying ball, you did it. Awesome, here's your ball. And then we're going to make that item really fun. So we want to pair the mand with lots of reinforcement, high energy. We want to play and interact with the learner. We're going to make it really exciting so that they are going to be more likely to emit that behavior in the future. We're always going to pair the tangible reinforcement with positive praise. So anytime we give them access to the item, we're going to give specific verbal praise and tell them what we loved about what they just did. I love that you just use your words. Good job saying but. I loved hearing your sounds. Here's your ball. So we're going to pair the tangible with the social. So that way we become a conditioned reinforcer with our learners. So if the learner does not emit the buzz sound, then we can move on to another activity and revisit maybe when the MO is higher. So maybe they really weren't just interested in the ball and it wasn't a good opportunity to man for it. The motivation wasn't high. So differential reinforcement. So once we get the reliably, we want to differentially reinforce successive approximations. So now we're no longer going to reinforce the ba, and we're going to say ba, ba, and then we're going to have our echoic. And then when they say ba, we're going to do the same. We're going to immediately reinforce, pair with positive praise. Loved hearing your voice. Here's the ba. Awesome job. I love that you said ba. And we're going to reiterate the sound and have them keep hearing it over and over and over, because the more they're receptively hearing it, the more hopefully we can get them to engage in that verbal behavior. So we'll differentially reinforce. We'll no longer reinforce the ba. Now we're going to want the ba. When the learner can reliably say ba, we're going to give the echoic prompt and say ball. And then we're no longer going to reinforce the ba. So we're using those successive approximations, and we're learning in stages so that we're making easy sounds to complex words. So they say ba, we're like, ooh, I like that you try. Let me hear you say ball, ball. And then when they emit the sound, awesome job, you did it. That's saying ball, here's the ball. And we're going to want to play with them and pair it with fun and make it really exciting. And it should be really, mand training should be really fun. Just to have the learners really excited about using those words. Prompt fading. So once the learner reliably says ball, when giving the echoic prompt say ball, we want to fade the prompts. We want to fade the echoics, and we want to transfer stimulus control to the ball itself, not our prompt. So all that means is before we were kind of giving them the script, this is what I want you to say. Say ba, say ball. Okay, they comply, they did it, and we were able to get the word ball reliably. Now we want to fade the echoic. So we can just present the ball and give them that visual cue, present the ball, and then pause and wait for it. And then we're going to want them to say ball, a man for the ball. So we are trying to fade the support and then have them manned using their MO. So assuming that the MO is high for the ball, we want to transfer the stimulus control from our prompt to the item itself. Shaping more elaborate language. So this is kind of switching gears a little bit, assuming that our learner has several words. So now we've seen what happens when we're taking a word and just breaking it down into pieces to make one word. Now we can use the same strategies to shape more elaborate language. So say we have a learner that has lots of words in their repertoire, and we're just trying to get some more elaborate language to have increased independence in their communication. So we're going to use the same concepts of prompting, differential reinforcement, successive approximations, and prompt fading. So let's say we have a learner that loves to go outside. So the MO is really high. They're at the door, they're going to the door. You can tell they're kind of pawing at it, like they want to go outside. And you know that the response requirement is appropriate because they have words in their repertoire. So it's a realistic expectation that we can shape a sentence. They don't know how to do it yet, but we're going to prompt it and then fade prompts. So let's say they're used to manding in 1 to 2 words. And now we want to shape it to the 3. So we're going to give them the most to least prompt. We're going to give them the I want go outside. So take the learner to the door, give them the echoic prompt, I want go outside. So that way they're learning to use their words to get access to reinforcement. And they're pairing the words with going outside. So we're going to immediately reinforce the man by opening the door. So the learner emits the response, I want go outside. Awesome job, good job, let's go play. So we're going to go run around, we're going to play, we're going to have lots of fun, make it highly reinforcing. Always pair with positive praise. I love the way that you used your words and you told me you wanted to go outside. Awesome job. And then you go outside and play for a short period of time. Bring the learner back and you can repeat the trial. So you stand at the door. When the learner reliably is responding with the echoic for the full sentence, I want to go outside, we can start fading our prompts. And now we're going to do a partial verbal. So you'll just stand at the door when the learner is ready to go out, they want to go, and they're just kind of waiting at you, looking at you. You can say, I want. And then we're going to have them hopefully fill in the sentence. So the learner's going to, the learner will respond by saying, I won't go outside. And then if not, they're not ready to fade the prompts. So we'll go back to the most successful, which was the full verbal, I want go outside. So when the learner is able to fill in the I want, so you give them the partial verbal, I want and pause, and then wait for them, I want go outside. Then open the door, let them out, have lots of fun. We're going to play with them and we're going to continue the process. So when the learner reliably responds, fade the prompts again, and we're going to do the partial verbal for I. So we're just going to give them a very short part of the sentence. And we're going to say I, and then have them fill in the blanks. I want go outside. So we're fading our support from the echoic prompt to the MO, assuming that the MO is still high to go outside. Now, all of this isn't going to be done in one day. So it'll take several opportunities of wanting to go outside and pairing that with the reinforcement. So when the learner reliably responds, we're going to fade the prompts. So the response is under the sole control of the MO to go outside, and they're just standing at the door. They want to go outside. Now we're going to fade all vocal prompts, and then we're going to wait for them. And then they'll say, I won't go outside, because we've trained them to do that. So we've kind of used those successive approximations to train them to do that. Then you can even move further and further away from the door into where the door is no longer in sight. And then you're going to have a man to go outside when they're away from the door. And then the MO is just to go outside. They don't even have the nonverbal cue of the door to prompt them for their language. How do I know where to start? So if a learner is emitting little to no sounds, then you're going to want to reinforce any vocal behavior, any babbling. You're going to want to make babbling fun for them, any kind of talking, any kind of vocalizations, any kind of sounds that they're making. We want to reinforce that and kind of play with it. And then if they are emitting a lot of vocal behavior, but not necessarily words, so they're babbling, they have lots of sounds throughout, intermittently throughout the day, they might be ready for the simple echoics. So that would be just the one syllable. Using sounds already in the learner's repertoire will help them feel successful with echoics. So if you have a learner that will reliably emit the ba, 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 ba sound, or ma, 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 ma sound, then maybe you want to start with the echoic ma, say ma, and then have them kind of like gain confidence because they can be successful with that. So then you're just kind of getting that instructional control, and you're getting them in the habit of complying with the echoics, and then they're getting access to a lot of reinforcement with it too. So we want them to like the echoics. So as long as we're pairing those, the responding with high preference reinforcers, lots of fun, then we'll get more responding in the future. If they are emitting many words but not sentences, it might be appropriate to work on more elaborate language. So manding should be fun. Be sure that the environment is really reinforcing and the learner is motivated. So mand training it really is the best. Like, it's an opportunity for you to get to learn, where you get to learn through playing. If a client is motivated for an item, or if a learner is motivated for an item, if they're having fun with an item, then they're going to be more likely to request it. Contrive many opportunities during the day for the learner to make requests. Maybe you're withholding access to an item and you've got it, and you're waiting for them to emit the mand. And if they don't, then we'll prompt them through it. But just making lots of opportunities so that the learner can get in the habit of having to request items instead of just having open access to everything they need all day. Motivation changes frequently. And lots of factors affect motivation. So just keep that in mind. So something that they might be extremely motivated for one day, they might not have any MO at all for that same item the next day. Pair tangible reinforcers and social praise. We're always going to pair the tangibles with our social praise. So when we deliver the item, if it's a preferred edible, and they're saying eat, and that's the word we're working on, eat. And then we give them a preferred snack. When they say eat, we're gonna pair that with the social praise. Hey, good job using your words. I love that we were able to ask for your food. Of course we can eat. Here's your stuff, and we're gonna give them their snack. Teach more than one man at a time to avoid overgeneralization. So it's good to teach several mans at once, 2 to 3 maybe to start, just so that way they're not using just the one word over several scenarios or different things inappropriately. So we're going to learn that this one is ball, this one is drink, this one is snack. So that way they're not overgeneralizing one word to several different other stimuli. That's not accurate. So having several mans that they can use or emit will help them discriminate and pair things with words. Things to watch out for: prompt dependency. So we don't want to over prompt or prompt too much. Once they start responding reliably to our echoics, remember that we want to fade our prompts. Watch out for the response requirement being too high. If you're starting to see a lot of challenging behavior with the mans in the request, maybe the learner isn't quite ready for that yet. So maybe they're not ready to emit full words. Maybe it's just the short, simple echoics, or maybe they're not ready for the sentences. They're still working on the one-man words. So keep in mind, be cognizant of the response requirement and make sure that it is appropriate for the learner and where they're at. Assuming that because the learner knows a word, they know how to make a request. And this can happen. So a learner might know that something is called a ball, or something is called a drink, or a certain toy, a car, but that doesn't mean that they know how to solicit an adult and ask for it. So they might be able to say car, but you still have to teach them how to request the car. So that's something to just be aware of. And then also watch out for manding when the MO is low, not there, or wrong. So we want to make sure that when we are teaching learners to mand, that the MO is there for the item. Especially if we're teaching like a yes or a no, we want to make sure that the client really is interested in whatever item we have to offer. Versus just assuming that they want it or don't want it. So looking for those nonverbal cues to help us identify where the MO is. So that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording, and thank you everybody for joining us. Let me stop.